Hello everyone. So now we're entering into a new series about the moral philosophy called Confucianism as a underlying logic for of how this society functions. How Confucianism turned obedience into virtue. The empire that called itself a family. In the West, Confucian is often harmless, a wise old man, a calm quote, a sentence on a tea bag. Respect your parents, study hard, be a gentleman. Very peaceful and elegant. Very good for yoga studios that also sell bamboo candles. But in Chinese history, Confucius became something much larger than wisdom. He became software, not computer software, civilizational software, a way to organize father and son, rulers and subjects, teachers and students, husband and wives, the classroom, family, bureaucracy, empires. Under the terrifying question is not was Confucius wise. It's what happens when a moral philosophy becomes the operating system of a state? In the West, we have often imagined tyranny as something cold, a dictator, secret police, a prison, a gray building with no windows. But some forms of power don't arrive like that. Some forms of power arrive with warmer words: father, family, harmony, duty, respect, gratitude. That's harder to resist. Because if the state calls itself your master, you may hate it. But if it calls itself your father, you're expected to love it. This is one of the deepest patterns in Chinese political culture. The family becomes a model for the state. The father becomes a small ruler. The ruler becomes a large father, and obedience stops looking like submission. It looks like virtue. To understand this, we have to go back to the world of Confucius. Confucius lived in a late spring and autumn period. It's not a peaceful age of bamboo forest and a wise man drinking tea. It was an old age collapsing ritual order. All aristocratic rules were breaking down. Regional rules were competing. Noble families were fighting. Small states were being swallowed by larger powers. The old Zhou um, dynasty, the Zhou world, was losing its grip. Confucius looked at this chaos and didn't say, let everyone invent themselves. He said, in effect, put their names back in order. Let the ruler be ruler, let the minister be minister, the father be father, the son be son. This famous idea appears in the Analects, where Confucius answered a question about government by by linking political order with correct roles: ruler, minister, father, son. That's a first historical key. Confucius was not selling individual freedom. He was trying to repair broken words through role, ritual, and hierarchy. This doesn't make him stupid. It makes him understandable. When the world is falling apart, order can feel like salvation. The danger begins later, when the search for order becomes a machine for obedience. One of the most powerful Confucian ideas is often translated as the rec- rectification of names. That sounds boring. It sounds like a bureaucrat correcting a spreadsheet. But it's much deeper. A name is not just a label. A name is a role. Father, son, minister, ruler, wife, student, teacher. Each name carries a script, how you should behave, where you should stand, how much you may speak, how much you must bow. It's very brilliant and dangerous, because if society defines you by your role, then disobedience is not merely disagreement, it's disorder. A son who resists his father is not just resisting a man, he is disturbing the named son. A subject who criticizes the ruler is not just criticizing policy, he is disturbing the named subject. That's how language becomes architecture. You don't need walls if everyone already know where to stand. But Confucius himself didn't rule China. He did not build an empire. He did not create the imperial bureaucracy. The decisive transformation come later, after the Qin dynasty. That's the first dynasty in um, Chinese history. I mean, the centralized government. After Qin dynasty tried to unify China through law, punishment, standardization, and centralized power, the Han Dynasty needed something much durable. An empire can survive by force alone. Force can conquer bodies. It can easily organize souls, so Confucianism became useful. During Han Dynasty, the idea associated with Confucius received state support and spread through elite society. Dong Zhongshu and Han Thinker linked Confucian ritual and hierarchy to a broader cosmic framework of yin yang and imperial order. This is the second historical key. Confucianism became powerful not simply because it was true or beautiful, because the empire needed a moral language for hierarchy. The ruler didn't want to look like a gangster with an army. He wanted to look like the father of civilization. Confucius helped make power respectable. He gave the empire a face, not the face of sword, the face of a teacher. The Qin could terrify people. The Han learned something more elegant. Terror is expensive. If everyone obeys only because they fear punishment, the state must keep showing the whip. But if people are taught that obedience is moral, the whip can rest. That's a genius of moral order. The brutal systems say, obey or I will punish you. A sophisticated system say, a good person would obey. One controls the body, the other trains a conscience. The empire did not only need soldiers, it needs son, students, wife, minister. It needs people who would please themselves before the police arrived. This is where Confucianism became political fascinating. It did not merely tell people what to do. It taught them what kind of person they should feel ashamed not to be. A sword can force you to kneel. A moral system can make you apologize for standing. Now we reach the most important concept of this episode, the state family structure. In traditional Chinese imagination, the family and the state mirror each other. The father governs the household, the emperor governs the realm. The child owns filial piety. The subject owns oaths, loyalty. The family is a small empire. The empire is a giant family. This is where Western viewers need to pay attention. A modern state usually say, I'm law, institution, I'm government. But a family state says something more intimate. I raised you, protect you, I know what's best for you. You owe me gratitude. That's more powerful than law. Law can be challenged. A father make you feel guilty. Imagine an empire made of millions of dinner tables. At each table, hierarchy is practiced. The child learns when to speak. The wife learns when to endure. The younger brother learns where to stand. The student learns not to embarrass the teacher. The subject learns how to bow before he ever sees the emperor. That's not just politics. This is political training disguised as family life. The emperor did not need to enter every home. The home had already learned to imitate the emperor. It's very different from modern Western political imagination. The West had kings, church, empire, slavery, colonialism, patriarchy, and more hypocrisy than it likes to remember. But modern Western political theory often asks, what are my rights? Where are the limits of the state? What can power not touch? What is the individual before the government? Confucian political culture more often begins with a different question. Where do you belong? Who is above you? Who is below you? What role must you perform? That's a cross-cultural core. Modern Western politics often imagine society as a contract. Confucian politics imagine society as a family. A contract can be renegotiated. A family makes living feel like betrayal. That's why family language is powerful. It turns politics into emotion, turns obedience into love, turns dissent into ingratitude. A prison with walls is easy to recognize. A prison with the cause itself family is harder to escape. Filial, filial piety is one of the most beautiful ideas in Chinese civilization. Respect for parents, care for elder, continuity across generation, memory, gratitude. No serious person should mock that. A society without gratitude becomes ugly very quickly. But every beautiful virtue has a shadow. Filial piety can mean care. It can also mean silence. It can mean love. It can also mean guilt. It can mean honoring parents. It also means surrendering your conscience to family pressure. In the Analects, Confucius does allow a son to remonstrate with his parents, but the language still emphasizes reverence, endurance, and murmuring even when punished. The tension is important. Classical Confucianism was not simply blind obedience. That would be too crude. But historically, filial, filial language could easily become a tool for suppressing the individual. A child say, "I'm suffering." The family say, "Be filial." A woman say, "I want another life." The clan say, "Know your place." A subject say, "The ruler is unjust." The citizens say, "Be loyal." This is how a virtue becomes a cage. Not because the word is evil, because power learned to live inside beautiful words. The most dangerous cage are built from virtues nobody wants to criticize. So now we turn to exam system. The This is where Confucianism becomes more than moral teaching. It becomes a recruitment machine. For centuries, the emperor examination system was both based on the Confucian classics and their accepted commentaries. Columbia Asia for Educator notes the examination system played a central role in spreading the Confucian worldview throughout traditional Chinese society, and the emperor state upheld the Confucian tradition very directly. Think about how powerful it is. If you want prestige, study the classics. If you want status, office, or if you want your family to rise, study the classics. If you're a brilliant child in a village, your road upward runs through the language of the state. It's not merely education, it's empire designing desire. A poor boy doesn't dream of overthrowing the system. He dreams of entering it. His family sell land, his mother burns oil at night. His father borrows money. The child memorizes, writes, competes, fails, tries again. Maybe he wins, and if he wins, the empire had not been defeated. It has gained its most talented servant. The exam did not only select talent; it taught talent what to desire. This is why meritocracy is complicated. It can open doors, it can break aristocratic privilege, you can revert discipline, but it can also recruit intelligence into power. Meritocracy is not always freedom. Sometimes it's the best elegant way to make ambition serve the state. To be fair, Confucian scholars were not always obedient pop, puppies. Some were courageous critics of rulers, some protested by policy, some risked their career, some saw themselves as moral guardians against corrupt power. In Song Dynasty, Confucian education encouraged scholar officials to aspire to government service, but also to speak up when they believed others were taking the wrong course. A serious video must not flatten history. Confucianism was not one thing, it could produce obedience, moral criticism, it could support hierarchy, it could also shame rulers, it could preserve order, it could also restrain cruelty. That's why this story is interesting. The problem is not that Confucianism was pure slavery, it's that its moral energy was trapped inside the imperial frame. The scholar could criticize the emperor, but usually in the name of better rulership. Not individualized, not popular sovereignty, not social contract. Not a law about destroying the modern constitutional sense. He could say, be a better father, but could he say, you're not my father? Every civilization dreams a good power, a just king, a holy emperor, a wise president, a benevolent father, a leader who finally understands the people. This dream is emotionally powerful because institutions are boring, good rulers are cinematic. A constitution doesn't ride a horse into battle. Checks and balances don't look good on a poster. But a virtuous ruler, that's easy to imagine. Confucian political morality often places great hopes in the moral transformation of rulers. Rulers should cultivate virtue, care for people, should become human. Human. This is beautiful and dangerous because when politics depend too much on virtue at the top, ordinary people are left waiting for saint. History is not kind to society that wait for saints. A society that wait for good rulers may never build enough protection against the bad ones. The Western constitutional tradition begins from that assumption. What if rulers are corrupt? What if power lies? What if good intention rot? What if women are not angels? The suspicion produces institution, limits rights, persecutes laws. Again, the West violated its own idea constantly, but the suspicion matter. Confucian politics trusted moral cultivation more than institutional restraint. It asked, how do we make ruler virtuous? Modern constitutionalism asks, what if they're not? The difference is enormous. Confucian politics often try to educate power. Constitutional politics try to limit it. Now, here is a historical irony. Confucius himself was not an emperor. He was not a successful ruler. He was a teacher, a field political advisor in many ways, a man wandering through a fractured world, trying to restore order. But later China turned him into something else, a saint, a civilizational symbol, a moral ancestor, an official source of legitimacy. This is the part you will understand immediately. Every civilization does this. Jesus becomes imperial Christianity. Buddha becomes temple bells and the state patronage. Marx become party state orthodoxy. Liberalism becomes corporate branding. Confucius becomes official virtue. Ideas are born in history, then power adapts them, frames them, quotes them, prints them, builds temple to them. make children memorize them, and eventually the idea becomes less a question than an answer, less a pass than a badge, less a challenge than a brand. A dangerous thinker asks question, an official sage supplies answer. The tragedy of Confucius is not only what he taught, it what later empires needed him to become. This is not just ancient China. That make the story too comfortable. The same pattern exists today. A company say, "We're a family." The translation is, "Please work overtime without asking too many questions." A nation say, "We're a family." The translation is, "Your pain belongs to the collective." A school says, "We discipline you because we love you." Translation is, "Your fear is your management style." A parent say, "I sacrifice everything for you." The translation is, "Your life is my investment." A government say, "Be grateful." The translation is, "Don't ask who owns your future." That's why the Confucian family state model matters beyond China. It reveals a universal mechanism. Power prefers to speak in moral words. It rarely says, "I want control." It says responsibility, tradition, harmony, loyalty, family, order, love. When power wants to enter the soul, it doesn't always carry a weapon. Sometimes it carries a virtue. So what do we do with Confucius? We should not reduce him to a villain. This is too easy. We should not reduce him to a harmless quote machine. It's too naive. The real question is, what happens when morality protects order more than it protects the person? What happens when family becomes a model for politics? What happens when education trains talent to serve power? What happens when obedience becomes virtue? That's where civilization is tested, not in the beauty of its slogan, not in the elegance of its virtue, not in the lens of its history, but it's in, can a human being stand before family, teacher, ruler, tradition, and still say, "I'm more than my role, I'm more than my usefulness, I'm more than my obedience, I'm more than my place in the order"? If the answer is no, then the society may have harmony. It may have virtue, discipline, beautiful words, but has not yet fully protected the human person. And that's the soul of this story. The empire called itself a family. It taught obedience as virtue. It made hierarchy feel natural. It turned morality into architecture. And for centuries, many people learned to call the cage home. But civilization doesn't begin when everyone knows their place. Civilization begins when even the wickedest person can say, "I'm more than my place." That's for this episode. Family or prison. How Confucius became empire software. I will see see you next time. Maybe next time I'm gonna talk about the exam system in Asian China. Let's see.